Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Ref the District's QB1 Press Your Luck. I'm Nathan. That's Stoner. Trev not joining us for this particular video, but that's all right. We'll still get his thoughts on our Wednesday show. This video is brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy. You can get yourself a discount on their goods, whether or not that's their drinks or their merchandise that you can see behind me here, by going to don'tsleepenergy.com and using our code. That's going to get you a little bit of a discount there. And I'm telling you, it is the drinks are perfect. When you have a late night and an early morning the next day, you're going to want that Don't Sleep Energy because that's going to keep you going all day long. Don't sleep. Be great. All right, Stoner, it's your turn to press your luck.
All right, here we go. So we've had some good ones. We've had some bad ones. Just no whammies. Just nothing, no crap, nothing crap. All right, here we go. And start it up. All right. I'm such a good actor. Ready? And stop.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Geno Smith.
Geno
is somebody who Washington's going to have to pry away from Seattle, as the information out there right now is those two are nearing a deal. Now, that's not to say that Washington couldn't swoop in and perhaps add a little bit of juice there and make it worth the 32-year-old to switch teams after having been with Seattle for the last 3 years. Maybe that's not going to happen. Don't worry. That's not what this discussion here is for. That will be on Wednesday, 7:30, right here on YouTube. You can catch it. For this particular one, we're just talking about Geno Smith as QB1 option for Washington Commanders. Yeah. Stoner, you seemed kind of in the middle on that one.
Yeah, I mean that's who he is as a quarterback, right? I mean, he's just he's a mid-tier kind of guy. He'd be an afterthought if he didn't all of a sudden have some sort of breakout year this year. But he's been playing.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. He's been playing for 9 years now. He's been given the opportunity to be the starter twice in a couple of different situations, and he really wasn't able to just grab it and go with it. So now all of a sudden we're supposed to start thinking of him as a viable quarterback solution for your franchise. I don't see it. I think the 1 year out of 9 is an aberration. I don't think it's all of a sudden that he's just figured it out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mentioned that he is 32. He'll actually be 33 during the next season. And I think that part really speaks a lot to it. I mean, you are absolutely right. He had a great season, like not a bad season, a great season, especially by Washington QB standards, which I know I said I'm not setting the bar there.
Yeah,
but right. I mean, yeah, Seattle finished 9-8. They did make they snuck into the playoffs. He completed nearly 70% of his passes, 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. In fact, actually, we have this here to help us out with that one. Yeah, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, QBR of 60.7. I mean, that's effective. That's above average QB play there.
It is.
So I wouldn't be upset if they got him. But Stoner, I'd be lying to you if I said I was excited.
No,
okay?
You couldn't be.
Could not be excited, right? 30, like I said, going to be 33. So this isn't a long-term option for you. Now, I will say, Stoner, there's a little bit thing that would get me a little bit giddy if Geno Smith came in here.
What's that? What would make you giddy from Geno Smith? Right. This is going to be some sort of revelation.
It's totally just absolutely stupid. But
okay.
He was with the New York Jets.
Okay.
They ended up doing so bad that they were high enough in the draft boards to get Sam Darnold. Now, Sam Darnold, we don't want Sam Darnold here, really. Okay. But they did do well enough or bad enough to be able to draft a QB within the top 3. Okay. Right.
When they already had the Jets.
Geno. When they already had Geno.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Then he goes to the New York Giants.
Right.
And they did bad enough that they got Saquon Barkley, and then the following year, Dan Jones. Again, not on the Dan Jones train or anything like that, but they're supposed franchise QB there with the Giants. Okay, a little bit of trend here. Chargers in 2018. And they picked up your man a couple of years after that.
Justin
Herbert with franchise quarterback. Now he's with Seattle, has been for the last 3 years. So maybe he leaves Seattle and Seattle all of a sudden drafts their QB1 of the future, comes to Washington. And then next year or the year after we draft our QB of the future. Wouldn't that make you exciting? Maybe not for this year. Oh yeah, totally reaching.
It's totally
reaching. I told you it was silly when I led into it, but that's probably about the only thing that's going to get me excited about Geno Smith. I do think that he would be an okay bridge quarterback, but at 33 years old, again, this isn't a long-term answer. Like 1 year wonder. I mean, it's so far this past season was really far and away the outlier for him. But that being said, Stoner, he also didn't play a lot, right? So he in the last 4 seasons, he's played the 17 games here, 3 games last year, and then didn't play in 2018, 2019, or 2020.
Right. And why is that?
Because he's just not
he's not good enough.
Best quarterback.
That gives it that your theory of all that, and I kind of like it. I like the pattern that he does, but all it's showing you is that everywhere he goes, he's been not good enough that the team has decided they still need to draft their franchise quarterback. Right? That's what they kept doing. They said, okay, let's go get Geno. Okay, he ain't it. Let's go draft a quarterback. And that just kept happening over and over and over again. And he's 30, like you said, he's going to be 33. He's had character issues throughout his career. Okay. Maybe that's now in his past. He's had some serious character issues.
Yeah. There's a reason there was the locker room punch and everything.
Well, there's a reason he dropped to second round in the draft that year. I mean, there was some teams that thought he was going to go top 5 that year, but because of character issues, he dropped all the way into the second round. So, and then he had the incident where he got punched in the jaw. And let's not forget, that was in preseason, and he was slated to be the number 1. And then he wasn't, because he was out for 10 weeks or whatever. And then by the time he was healthy, can't remember who it was, had solidified himself as the starter. And then he was pretty much out of his job. Maybe it was Mark Sanchez. I can't even remember that far back. But,
so Ryan Fitzpatrick ended up
right. It was Fitzpatrick
taking the reins.
That's right.
Year.
That was the Fitzpatrick year when he came in and he was playing well enough that they were like, "You're done, Geno." And then he has an incident, I believe, also with the Jets. Maybe it was later in his career, but I just remember in my head he had an incident where he missed a team meeting when they were out west. And you know what his excuse was? I didn't know there was a 3-hour difference between West Coast and East Coast. I mean, that is the flimsiest excuse I've ever heard. And that's the excuse he gave. I didn't know there was a 3-hour difference between the West Coast and East Coast. You're not 12, dude. So he's got those issues, right? And every team has just passed on him. And all he had to do this year to get the starter's job is beat out Drew Lock. Okay? That's not hard to do. But he did have a good year. He had a career year. You have to give that to him at least.
Absolutely. And I think that's why people are looking. Even Seattle's looking to, re-sign him here. And I think that's also because they've seen him again for the last couple of seasons. And last year, even though he played 3 games last year with 1 and 2 QB wins aren't a thing. But he did throw 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. So I think they see somebody who can maybe duplicate this season that he had with 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. And, again, if he comes here, if he's able to put up, I'd say 75% of those numbers here, then I think, that Washington may or may not have a successful season. Probably not with 75% of those numbers. They're not those good of numbers. But again, I think
you got 17 games now too. We always have to kind of remember that it's an extra game, that these numbers should be higher than normal. That would probably be less than 4,000 yards. That would probably be 28 touchdowns. But, you have to give him his due for what he's done.
Yeah.
So you're right about those.
Is there anything that would excite you for? I know I kind of did the joking giddy about the whole we could draft our QB of the future after acquiring Geno Smith, but for you, is there any real positives if Geno Smith came here?
I mean, if you just take the numbers, okay, of this past year, and you take a look at his size, you know, he's a prototypical quarterback. He's 6'3", 220-ish, something to that effect. He's got a good arm. He is very accurate. This year, he was very accurate, almost 70%.
Yeah.
He can run. He had over 350 yards rushing this year. I think 360 something or another. Okay, so he can run with the ball when he needs to. So if you just took this one season and didn't factor in all those other years that he couldn't win starting jobs, that he was hurt, you know, he's torn his ACL once, he's broken his jaw, as we talked about already, once. If you just look at this last year, you could say that's something you could work with. And maybe not as a, you know, let's sign him to a 6-year, $200 million contract, but let's get him in here and let's see what he can do with these weapons and that defense. And that's kind of what Seattle did. Seattle had weapons, right? They didn't have as good a defense as they normally do, but, you know, they have pieces to build around, and they've got good coaching, and that turned into a Pro Bowl year in the playoffs. Even though in that last game, when it was a win and you're in type game, he wasn't very good in that game, and they barely won.
Do you think this conversation would be different if this were a 29-year-old Geno who had just had a breakout season?
If it was 29-year-old Geno and this was like his 5th season?
Yeah, I mean, hey, how many? Because we'd be losing 3 seasons as well, right? Because he's
Yeah, like if it was his 5th year,
29, maybe even 6th season. What if it was his 6th season, 29 years old?
Yeah, you can start saying something, but you know, it's been so long of all these years. And again, I like to go with the average, right? Sure. I like to go with the numbers. The numbers say for 8 seasons, he was garbage.
He was not the guy.
Not good enough to even show that he was garbage. And then 1 year, all of a sudden, he breaks out. I don't know that this is now the new Geno. I think this was an aberration, and that he's going to go back to the old Geno next year.
I know that's more of a Wednesday conversation, so I don't want to dive too much into that because that was a wowzer. That was something, Stoner. I will say that I don't think he's going to go back to the old Geno. I think that there's going to be it's going to be in between somewhere. And I think that he can have a career like Ryan Fitzpatrick from this point out, where he starts for Seattle, maybe goes somewhere else and starts late. And, as a 35-year-old passing for 24 touchdowns or something like that. So, but I do think you're right. If it'd be too much if you're talking about he's 29, you take away 3 seasons. So he, hasn't really been that bad for a decade in the league.
I mean, he sat behind,
maybe have something.
Yeah. And he sat behind Russell Wilson. So it's not like he was sitting behind Drew Lock for 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. He was sitting behind a Hall of Famer for 3 seasons. And that's why he never played. And a guy who normally stays healthy the entire time. So he's just been sitting there kind of biding his time, waiting for an opportunity. And once he finally got that opportunity, he took advantage of it. And now he's going to get a nice, healthy paycheck from somebody, probably Seattle, but maybe
Seattle's
Washington.
Looking like the strong one there. So
yeah, but he's also, this is interesting. And I tried to figure out how I could frame this into a question without you knowing the answer, but I can't. Okay. But he is the answer to a trivia question, a really cool trivia question. And who is the quarterback that started and broke Eli Manning's 210 consecutive start streak? It was Geno Smith, right? And
Giants that was such idiots for doing that.
But. Yeah, it was so political, right? Because he started that one game, and then he started the next game, and he was so bad that they put Eli in, and then Eli finished out the year.
Yeah, so really, he actually, really according to the stats I have in front of me, he actually only started that one game
Oh, it's just the one
for the
game.
Giants. Yeah, he came in.
Okay.
He came in relief play, and then he started the next game. He was 21 of 36 and 212 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And I think the backlash really was what it was
Mm.
for
There's no
the Giants
reason
to
to
do that, because he just wasn't good enough. You weren't.
Yeah.
Geno wasn't good enough. And to be fair, Eli Manning wasn't good enough, but Eli
Yeah.
Manning was still like your guy who had this Iron Man record going, and
Yeah.
you ended not because of injury, but because you were just like, yeah, let's see if this at this point, been in the league for 4 years at that point.
Yeah.
That was his 5th season, and you're just like, yeah, we're gonna ruin it for this guy who,
You didn't
for
have
whatever
Aaron
reason.
Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre waiting for a chance to get in. You had Geno Smith, who was on his second team, who had already failed out of one other team. So it was just a really weird situation. But yeah, he's the answer to that trivia question for Eli. And then Eli, did he retire at the end of that year or maybe the next year?
I think he
I can't
retired at the
remember.
end of the next year. I'd have to.
And he still started all those games. So I think he started like 226 out of 227 or something like that. Just a ridiculous thing for the Giants to do to Eli, but he's gotten over it. He's doing okay for himself. I wouldn't worry about Eli.
Yeah, he's doing. Both of them, I think, are doing okay at this point in their careers.
Yep.
So yeah, Eli ended up staying with the Giants after that season for 2 more seasons. So he
retired after that.
Retired after the 2019 season.
Wow. I mean, they just did him wrong just for that one game. And
one game. Yeah, because Eli Manning did play all 16 games in the 2018 season, and then he played and started in 4 before, I believe, taking the back seat there to
Daniel Jones.
Actually, yeah, it was Daniel Jones. He has Daniel Jones time at that point.
And you ever seen those two in a helmet side by side? They look exactly the same. Daniel Jones and Eli Manning look exactly the same. And we're going way off the Geno Smith.
We are way off Geno Smith. Let's get back on the Geno Smith side of things here.
Yeah.
Where we have a top 10 list, where do you put him, and why is he there compared to the rest of your list?
Because we're kind of, if you look at our list, you can see that there are, certain guys on the top of our list, and it just so works out that we're kind of getting towards the bottom of our list, not on purpose. It's just kind of the way it's worked out.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of, you got to have 10, and he was one of the 10 or 15 available. And so I had to put him somewhere. So that's why I have him where I have in my list. There's plenty of options that I would choose ahead of him. So, he's probably, to me, he's a mid to lower end of the spectrum. I'll be honest. I don't want him anywhere near this team. I don't think that 2022 was him taking off all of a sudden. I just think it was an aberration. It was the outlier, and he's not going to duplicate anything like that. So I don't want him anywhere near my team, to be honest.
Yeah, so I have him, when you're looking at the top 10 list, I have him just outside the top 5, which is where it starts kind of going downhill. I will say that he, out of the also rans, which I'll consider 6 through 10, the also rans.
Yep.
He is my choice. I think whether or not you think this year, you seem to think this year is more of an aberration than I do.
Yep.
I think that he won't duplicate this year, but I think he'll do well enough next year for Seattle, because that's where I'd like him to be.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. We're talking about in Washington.
In Washington, he might have less success, but I think that's less to do with Geno and more to do with where Washington's headed next season. But
yeah,
he is one that I would take over several of the other names I see on the list. Interesting enough here, Trev's not here to defend himself, but I have his list.
Yeah,
I'm going to let you know, and I want you to tell me what you think about this. He has Geno Smith at 4.
I'm not sure. Okay, Trev's going to hear it anyway. I'm not sure he was lucid when he made this list. Okay,
he was taking on his 4 locos. What was he on last time? He was telling us he's like, I think high noons or something like that.
Yeah, he loves Sam Howell, and yet he's got Sam Howell way below.
Yeah, Sam Howell's at 8
and he's got Geno
on his
4.
list. Geno's at 4.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he was in his right mind when he made that.
I'm telling you,
list.
you should see the rest of his list.
Oh, it's going to be
it's
controversial.
yeah. Yeah, we're gonna get some comments on those, and hopefully we'll get some of your comments here on this one. Where would you rank Geno on your top 10 list? What is Geno Smith someone you would want here? Do you agree with Stoner? Is this last season an aberration for Geno Smith, or do you think that he's going to be able to duplicate it? Would he duplicate those numbers here in Washington? Those are all questions we want answered, and we want you to answer them there in the comment section. Geno Smith, QB1 for Washington. Stoner and I, not so much on that train, but we'll see where everyone else lands. And of course, we'll be live on Wednesday at 7:30 right here on YouTube. So catch our thoughts on what it would take to lure Geno Smith away from Seattle and get Trev's feelings on it as well. All that's right here on Ref the District. But until next time,
Geno,
be a fan. Hey, thanks for watching us here on Ref the District. While you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Check out one of these other videos here as well. We create lots of great content. Of course, we're live every Wednesday at 7:30. Things get pretty heated there as well. Until next time, be a fan.